53. Let's see, I'm placing an order to buy at 116.53 euro. So let's see if I will be lucky enough to buy it. Okay. And it doesn't want. Okay, let's move. Are we moving or not? Let's see if I will move. Because I really want to buy this level. Okay, I'm moving to 116.54. I'm moving to buy at 116.54. Let's see. Okay, I'm moving to buy at 116.55. $116.55. They don't want to take my money, yeah? I'm placing an order to buy at 116.57. Order placed to buy at 116.57. Come on. The reason I cannot place order at the price because 1 pip equals, in my case, I control around £1 million. So it's not possible me to buy. Level 2 just doesn't have this amount. Oops, it executed at 116.57. Okay, so I bought it. Let's see where it will lead us. Okay.
A large difficulty in delivering housing supply in any kind of scale over the last 10 years. And by our estimates and the estimates of others, this is what has contributed to a prevailing undersupply of housing in the country, not just in terms of listed inventory, but the physical product for people to live in.
Interesting. All right. Well, thanks for the update. We really appreciate it. Good luck down there in Atlanta. Brad Dillman, Chief Economist for Cortland, joining us on the phone from the ATL. Hopefully he can help the Falcons get a win because they are really having a tough time. But just saying, our buddy Arthur Blank had a very, very bad weekend.
Again, right?
Again, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they had lost. Then they suffered as if they needed this. Another historic comeback, being on the wrong side of it and lost by 1 point after an onside kick. It was horrific.
But they're playing ball.
They are playing ball. Good point, Carol. It's very optimistic of you.
That is kind of
You're so sunny and optimistic.
I am. I'm looking at it a gorgeous
You know who's
day.
not sunny and optimistic right now? Arthur Blank. But he's got a good book out.
He's got a
called
great
Good
book.
Company.
Good Company. I hope
Really
he's keeping
good.
good company.
Yeah,
I hope that's at least making him happy.
I hope he's going back to some of the lessons he learned in some of the tough times at Home Depot and elsewhere. All right, let's get down to Nancy Lyons now in D.C. She's got an update on the world of the nation. Hey, Nancy.
Thanks, Jason. Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron says it is unlikely any additional charges will be coming in the Breonna Taylor case. A former Louisville police officer was charged today with 3 counts of wanton endangerment in the first degree for firing into the apartment behind Taylor's home, but none of the 3 officers was charged with her death.
My team set out to investigate the circumstances surrounding Ms. Taylor's death. We did it with a singular goal in mind: pursuing the truth.
Taylor's attorney calls today's grand jury decision outrageous and offensive. Democratic presidential hopeful Joe Biden says it is time to seriously address systemic racism.
Race relations that have just been drawn into focus, everything from police brutality to lack of access. And the American people have all of a sudden, average people, gone on board.
He's in North Carolina today. 2 new polls out show Biden with the national lead against President Trump. A Marquette University poll finds Biden at 50% compared with 40% for Trump. The latest Quinnipiac poll has Biden leading Trump 52 to 42%. Chief Justice John Roberts is remembering his colleague, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, today as tough and brave, a fighter and a winner.
Subjected to discrimination in law school and the job market because she was a woman, Ruth would grow to become the leading advocate fighting such discrimination in court.
Ginsburg's body will lie in repose at the U.S. Supreme Court for 2 days and then will lie in state in the U.S. Capitol. She'll be the first woman to have that honor. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nancy Lyons.
All right, Nance, thanks so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week.
No. Were you?
I am chuckling.
It's probably something you can't talk about.
No, it's that there's a great, actually, speaking of football, it's a great tweet that our buddy Paul Rabel just put out. It's a picture of Bill Belichick, shout out to our producer, Paul Brennan, just looking completely ridiculous and downtrodden in one of his, cut-off sweatshirts. And Paul tweeted, I'm going to retweet this. Paul retweeted, it's my morning vibe on a Premier Lacrosse Zoom meeting. It's just hilarious.
Oh, my God, I got to look this up now.
I'm going to retweet it right now. In any case, not great news here in the city of New York, in and around the city of New York. And this is something we've heard a lot about across the country, states and cities having to take action because their finances are not great. So Mayor Bill de Blasio, he's got a lot on his plate right now, including trying to get schools back in session, furloughing 9,000 New York City employees, no aid coming. It's a 5-day furlough, so, I mean, this isn't a long-term thing at the moment, but still pretty serious.
Yes.
And it's a $9 billion shortfall New York City is facing through June 2021.
Right. So, as you said, they're expanding week-long furloughs to another 9,000 employees to save $21 million, which is a kind of a small step towards a $9 billion shortfall. But I guess they're looking at everything. The mayor has warned of as many as 22,000 layoffs in the absence of some more federal financial aid, specifically aimed at helping out cities. Or they're looking for some aid, approval from the state for some long-term borrowing. Listen, we're going to come out of this, and I don't know what everything's going to look like in terms of the financial states because the amount of money that's needed to be thrown at, to help everybody out during the virus. But at the same time, if we don't do it, we're going to be stuck in a recession for a long time.
Yeah, and it's really just it's difficult to figure out how this all gets fixed and how they get out of this hole. We'll continue to follow this story. This is Bloomberg.
markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Steep losses for the U.S. stock market at or near session lows right now. Let's head right over to the first word breaking news desk for today's afternoon call. Lots going on. Here he is, Bill Maloney.
And good afternoon, Charlie. That's right. U.S. stocks under pressure with large cap tech really fading here. Dow's currently down 507 points. S&P's dropped 72. NASDAQ is lower by 2.8%. The U.S. 10-year yield at 0.67%. Gold is down 40 points. Transports fall 100 points. And among the main 11 S&P sectors, all were in the red, led by declines in energy, tech, and real estate. In the Dow, only Nike and J&J were in the green, while Salesforce, Apple, and Chevron led to the downside. In other news, Tesla suffered a complete network outage. GoodRx opened at $46 a share. IPO was priced at $33, and Zoom Video topped $500 per share. After earnings, General Mills Q1 adjusted EPS beat the highest estimates. And wrapping things up here, H.B. Fuller reports after the bell. Live from the first breaking news desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Charlie?
Okay, we thank you very much, Bill Maloney. And to hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg, type Squawk, S-Q-U-A-W-K, on your terminal. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Well, it's time for Bloomberg Green, and that's brought to you by PGIM, the investment management business of Prudential, committed to better outcomes for ESG investments. Join the pursuit of outperformance at PGIM. Learn more at pgim.com. Carol?
All right, Jason Kelly, in our weekly Bloomberg Green segment, World, we've got a problem. Amazon doesn't have a plan to solve emissions. That sounds like a pretty big problem for me. I don't know how you feel about that, Jason, but it sounds pretty big.
I do think that is a big problem.
Are you with me? Are you with me, buddy?
I'm with you.
All right.
I've got so much coming at me right now. Yes, I'm with you. It's a big problem.
All right. Bloomberg News technology reporter Matt Day is now with us on the phone from Seattle. I do feel like, Matt, it's all just coming at us fast and furiously. Tell us about Amazon. What do you mean they don't have a plan to solve emissions?
So they've set out this goal, right? They want to zero out all the carbon footprint from them driving, flying, getting packages all around the world, right? But there's sort of no technological roadmap to get there today, right? They've sort of set this goal, and they could outline sort of what they'd like to do or what they'd envision doing, but they just need a whole bunch of moonshots that frankly just don't exist today in a way that Amazon might use.
Yeah, so is this just a matter of the scope and scale of this is like nothing we've ever seen before? Because anytime I even try and get my head around how deeply entrenched and how widely entrenched Amazon is in the world of commerce and shipping and all that, I don't think we've ever seen anything like this, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just, can they get clean trucks on the road? It's can they find a way to build, cloud computing data centers with zero carbon? Can they source just-in-time manufactured products from China with zero carbon? Like almost every corner of the economy, Amazon plays some role in. And so it's essentially their bet is the economy can decarbonize. And so that's the kind of task they've set out for themselves across all of those ways that they play in our lives.
Well, set the stage a little bit. When we think about Amazon, right, we've talked about this on air. I mean, listen, we've all gotten used to, I order it, I have it in my hands the next day, right? Amazon has spoiled us, but we all now expect it. So, I mean, this has a big, huge impact on our society. Talk to us about, what do we know about, the effect that Amazon has on our climate?
So we know it's a big one. Their carbon footprint is something on the order of a large power company, right? It doesn't really compare to tech. It's more like a huge retailer, right? Just the way that we typically think of them. But one thing that our reporting found is they haven't really addressed, so far what they've done to our expectations for just that fast delivery, right? Often in commerce, fast delivery means you put something on a plane or a half-empty truck. That means a bigger carbon footprint. So Amazon, if they're going to tackle this, a lot of folks think they're going to have to address just that sort of expectation setting that they've done in kind of popularizing e-commerce, albeit they're lonesome for a while.
Well, and one thing I want to ask you, 2030, I mean, that's 9 years away. Like, it's interesting, Jason, I think about the conversation I had.
It's 2020.
Oh, 2020. Well, I feel like we're almost done here. Come on.
You're hoping we're almost done with 2020.
Oh my God. So, but Matt, you know what I'm thinking about, and Jason was here. I mean, I had a conversation with the head of IKEA and the group that, oversees IKEA. And I mean, sustainability has been, from the get-go, from the creation of this company. And, I think he was a little bit skeptical of those, people who put out these projections and it's going to take so long. I mean, is it fair that it's going to take this long for Amazon, or if they really wanted to, they could improve their situation in terms of their impact on, in terms of zero emissions? Could they do it a lot sooner? I mean, couldn't they possibly?
I'm not sure. They actually give themselves a little bit more than that. Their zero carbon goal is 2040. But I think just given the gravity of what they're trying to achieve, certainly climate activists would say that's not nearly fast enough, right? We're already too late. But given the fact that they are essentially saying they want to keep doing business as usual, but find a way to green it all, like they're betting on zero carbon, marine freighters and zero carbon air cargo, right? Things that just don't exist. So I think, it's even there's some questions around there on whether they could get this done in 20 years, much less 10.
Well, and Matt, you have to think that in the same way that we've seen other retailers play a big role in this, and I'm thinking of Walmart, in this and in all other aspects of how operations and companies are run, I mean, there's a case to be made that as Amazon goes, sort of so goes the world, right? I mean, this will influence a lot of other behavior, both in their supply chain, but also beyond, just because of their, again, size and scale.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, where Amazon goes, just given their influence in the economy, you could see a roadmap for other companies to do the same thing. And I think that's why, a lot of the critics who would have said Amazon should have started doing this years ago are, satisfied now because they're starting to push these buttons and, nudge suppliers. There's still a lot more they could do, certainly, but just the fact that a company with that kind of influence is making this a big priority, of its PR, if nothing else, is a sign to other companies that, they might take this more seriously.
Well, there's a lot in this story, and so everyone definitely go to Bloomberg.com, and you can actually read more stories on climate news, science, and the environment at Bloomberg.com/green. But definitely check out Matt's story because there's a lot of reporting in there. Matt Day, thank you so much, technology reporter at Bloomberg News, on the phone from Seattle.
Yeah, I love that story, and as you say, when you read it, you get a lot of the details and the nuances. It's also fascinating, I think, and this is kind of what was underneath my question about as Amazon goes, their processes, the way they do things. I mean, Jeff Bezos has created a new way of doing business in many ways. I will say he does seem to be even more publicly committed to this. I think about the fact that, they bought the naming rights to the new hockey arena there in Seattle. So they're putting their money where their mouth is to a large extent. But will they get there fast enough? In 9 years or 10 years, 19,
but
20,
you're right.
Whatever it's going to be.
But what they do, many others could follow, and watch what they're doing. So I do think it's important. All right, you are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Massar, Jason Kelly, he's dancing in Alice's room. This is Bloomberg.
Broadcasting live to New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 1061. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Well, coming up, we're going to get Dave Wilson's chart of the day. If we have time, I have to ask Dave about Rolling Stone's new ranking of the 500 best albums of all time.
No way. All right, we got to make sure we get through the chart and get to that. Okay, good stuff. Let's get another check on your top business stories. Here is Charlie Pellet.
Thank you very much. Lots going on. 28 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. J.P. Morgan Chase poised to pay close to $1 billion to resolve market manipulation investigations by U.S. authorities into its trading of metals futures and Treasury securities. This, according to 3 people with knowledge of the matter. The potential record for a settlement involving alleged spoofing could be announced as soon as this week. J.P. Morgan Chase shares, they are tumbling today. It's a down day for a lot of stocks. J.P. Morgan Chase now lower by 1.3%. The Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ are all retreating, trading near session lows amid warnings from Fed officials about the need for more stimulus to lift the U.S. economy from a coronavirus-induced recession. The S&P is down 67 points, down 2%. The Dow is down 454 points, down 1.7%. NASDAQ down 286, a drop of 2.6%. Dow Transportation Average down 0.6%, while the NASDAQ 100 index is down 2.8%. 10-year yield 0.67%. Gold down 2.2%, $18.58 the ounce. And crude West Texas Intermediate down 0.4%, $39.64 the ounce for West Texas Intermediate crude. Johnson & Johnson is the 4th vaccine maker to move its candidate into late-stage human studies in the U.S. The company's chief scientific officer says if enrollment goes as expected, the trial could yield results as soon as next year. Johnson & Johnson shares, they're up today, moving higher by just about 0.5%. Well, it is a down day across the board, as I mentioned. Recapping on the S&P, lower now by 2%. The S&P 500 index is at 3247. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thanks so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. I love that song.
It kind of just makes me happy.
Love that song. All right, Dave Wilson, have you seen this list?
Yes.
You're not going to let him do the chart? Okay, wait, what?
Hold on, I'm going to ask him whether he's seen it, then he can do the chart, and then we're going to come back.
All right.
Yeah,
I mean, I haven't gone through it in detail. I just saw the top picks.
Yeah. All right, we're going to talk about that on the other side of the chart.
Okay. Well, we should point out that we can wish a happy birthday to Bruce Springsteen.
Happy birthday.
How old is he?
71.
Good Lord.
You know, if he had actually joined us either at our homes or we could have even gotten to the studio, I would have made a cake. I would have baked a cake.
He could have
or
stopped
Jen
by.
could have made
He's
it.
there in New
baked a
Jersey.
cake.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. He's not too far. Oh,
Yeah,
just
exactly.
down the turnpike.
Anyway, happy birthday, Bruce, and the chart.
Well, the rising seemed to fit because that's what's been going on this month with some out-of-favor stocks. And, it's something that Jim Paulson, who's the chief investment strategist at Luthol Group, picked up on. And in his view, there may be more to come. He specifically cited 4 types of companies. Value stocks, those relatively cheap shares. How many times have we talked about a rebound in value stocks? But, it's starting to happen. At least it's been going on for the better part of September. Smaller companies represented by the Russell 2000. Non-U.S. stocks, whether we're talking developed markets or emerging markets, and also cyclical shares, the companies most closely tied to the pace of economic growth. Now, the chart gets into 3 of the 4 that are relatively easy to show by using ratios. The Russell 1000 Value Index, fairly broad-based gauge, versus the S&P 500. The Russell 2000 versus the S&P 500. And what's called the MSCI All Country World ex-USA Index, again, relative to the S&P 500, on a total return basis, because that's how Paulson did it. So, dividends are part of the mix, as well as price changes. And what it comes down to, at least in his view, is the economy's potential to recover. That if indeed what we've started to see is sustainable, then you'd be in a position for these relatively beaten down kind of areas of the market to show some renewed life. That's his view. And maybe what we're getting this month is sort of a harbinger of that. If you want to know more, folks, send me an email. I'll get you the chart, the explanation that goes with it, and everything I do going forward. The email address is dwilson@bloomberg.net. That's dwilson@bloomberg.net.
All right, back to Rolling Stone. Sorry,
All right,
Dave.
I'm going to read the top 5, and I want your reaction, Dave.
I know what the top 5. I've got them right here.
I know you. I'm telling the audience. Number 5, The Beatles, Abbey Road. Number 4, Stevie Wonder, Songs in the Key of Life. Number 3, Joni Mitchell, Blue. Number 2, The Beach Boys, Pet Sounds. And number 1, the number 1 album of all time, according to Rolling Stone, Marvin Gaye, What's Going On. All right, Dave, your reaction.
I mean, these are all kind of definitive albums by each of the artists. It strikes me, though, that the reason What's Going On is number 1 is as much a function of the times we're living in now as the music that was presented and the subject matter and everything else. So, if this list was done next year, it might be back to Pet Sounds, which clearly was innovative in terms of Brian Wilson's use of the studio with the Beach Boys.
Right.
Joni Mitchell, Blue is one of those records that, people kind of gravitate toward as emblematic of her sound. Songs in the Key of Life, double album, you get a lot of bits of Stevie Wonder, the adult Stevie Wonder, not the 12-year-old harmonica player Stevie Wonder, but he had a lot of time to figure out what he wanted to do, and he did it. And Abbey Road, I mean, is about as definitive as you can get when it comes to the Beatles. You could argue whether it, should be Revolver or Rubber Soul or Sgt. Pepper. I mean, clearly it should be in the top 5.
So here's one interesting fact.
Go, what?
Every one of these was made released between 1966 and 1971.
Which is why my husband's like, music just stopped after.
There you go.
Well, at least number 6 was Nirvana's Nevermind.
Right, exactly.
Yes, there
you
go.
got Fleetwood Mac, you got Rumors, Purple Rain.
And, the
Bob
top
Dylan.
10 is pretty solid. Lauryn Hill rounding out the top 10 there with The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill in 1998. That's probably the newest album on there.
Yeah.
I mean,
pretty-
this list,
pretty
Dave, I'm
amazing
sure you
list.
agree, like, especially if you expand it to the whole 500. I mean, you could spend weeks just debating all of the different placements and how in the world is, Joshua Tree number 158 or whatever it is.
You know, I went looking specifically when this list came out yesterday for Led Zeppelin. Not
Yes.
in the top 50.
Yeah,
now
just
how is
outside
that?
the top 50. I noticed that.
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin 4 is just out. It's like 59 or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
You can tell how I spent my morning.
You know, these lists are always subjective, so we could go on and on about it. But hey, you got things to do, don't you?
Yes, we do. We all
Kind
do.
of. Kind
All
of.
right.
We'll talk to you after the close of trading day, Wilson. Thank you so much. So let's get down to Washington and Nancy Lyons. Hey, Nancy.
Hey, Jason. Chief Justice John Roberts paid tribute today to the late Associate Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg at a private ceremony at the Supreme Court. He says she will be remembered as an inspiration to others.
She was not an opera star, but she found her stage right behind me in our courtroom. There, she won famous victories that helped move our nation closer to equal justice under law, to the extent that women are now a majority in law schools, not simply a handful.
Ginsburg's body will lie in repose for 2 days outside the Supreme Court and then lie in state inside the U.S. Capitol. Top health officials are assuring lawmakers when it comes to a vaccine, scientists will guide the decision-making. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports.
Food and Drug Administrator Stephen Hahn told the Senate Health Committee the decision to release a COVID-19 vaccine to the public would not be political.
Every one of the decisions we have reached has been made by career FDA scientists based on science and data, not politics. FDA will not authorize or approve a vaccine that we would not feel comfortable giving to our families.
The director of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Robert Redfield, similarly said changes in its publications were done for clarification and not to accommodate the administration. In Washington, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
Kentucky will not pursue murder charges against the police officers in the death of Breonna Taylor, instead bringing lesser counts against one of the men involved. Brett Hackison was indicted today on 3 counts of first-degree wanton endangerment for firing his weapon into unidentified apartments. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nancy Lyons.
All right, Nance, thanks so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Well, one of the most read stories on the Bloomberg today, it is about J.P. Morgan. We've been writing and talking a lot about J.P. Morgan. This is a little bit of a different story, though. A scoop by our colleagues Ben Bain, Tom Schoenberg, and Matt Robinson. That's quite a trio.
Yes.
J.P. Morgan set to pay $1 billion in record spoofing penalty. Now, spoofing, it sounds so like, oh, they were just spoofing. This is a big deal, and candidly, it's a big crime on Wall Street.
Yeah, so what it typically involves is flooding derivatives markets with orders that traders don't intend to execute to trick others into moving prices in a desired direction. Yes, I am reading from the story. But nonetheless, I mean, this is a no-no. This is basically playing with the financial markets, right, to your benefit. And so we've talked about this story before, and we've had some great reporters come on and explain exactly what this was and why it wasn't okay to do. The practice has become a focus, though, for prosecutors, also regulators in recent years, after lawmakers specifically prohibited it back in 2010.
Yeah, and it's interesting. When prosecutors filed the cases last year against specific traders, they basically pointed to the precious metals desk and they said this was an illicit enterprise that was going on within the bank for almost a decade. This was a long-term. This wasn't just like, hey, I think we can get away with this today, bros. This is a long time.
Right. And listen, you are allowed to submit an order and then cancel it. That's
Sure.
okay. But this is, intentionally looking to basically fool other traders. The thing I'd love to know, Jason, I don't know if it's in the story, I'd love to know, since it was going on for such a long time, how much money J.P. Morgan made in that period.
Yeah.
And so they're paying $1 billion, sounds like a lot, but how much money was made?
Right. And as always, there's this question of like, all right, you settle, you're fine. Do you have to admit wrongdoing?
Right.
Do you not? I mean, Wall Street is famous, and financial regulators, candidly, are famous for, these settlements. It's like they pay a huge amount of money, but they admitted no
didn't do anything
wrongdoing.
wrong.
It's like, okay, interesting.
I never get
Anyway,
that.
we'll keep track of this one. That's for sure. It's Bloomberg.
markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellett. 13 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell, with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ trading at or near session lows amid warnings from Fed officials about the need for more stimulus to lift the U.S. economy from a coronavirus-induced recession. S&P on track for its lowest close in just about 2 months. Here's where we stand. The S&P is down 77 points, a drop of 2.3%. 2% drop for the Dow, down 548 points. Dow Transport's down 1%. NASDAQ is down 325 points. That's a decline of 3%. The NASDAQ 100 index is down 3.1%. 10-year yield 0.67%. Gold is down 2.1%. $18.60 the ounce, tumbling $39 an ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude down of 0.5%, $39.61 a barrel. Again, recapping, S&P down 76, a drop of 2.3%. I'm Charlie Pellett. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm driving in my car. I turn on the radio.
How about you let me drive?
Oh, no. Who's gonna drive you home? Honey, please, I'll do the driving. Drive on. Excuse me, I want to drive. Just drive, baby.
It's the question that drives us.
This is the drive to the close.
That funky music will drive us till the dawn.
On Bloomberg Radio.
All right, time for the drive to the close. Let's check in with Mark C. Smith. He's Vice President of Wealth Management, Portfolio Manager for UBS Financial Services. He's joining us on the phone from New York City. Mark, how are you? How are things?
Well, we're doing the best we can under the circumstances. Most of us are still working from home, but we go in the office from time to time, so we're just making the best of it.
Yeah, and so how does that change the way that you deal with clients and sort of talk to them? Because I'm sure everybody's in similar circumstances, but it's got to change the way that your sort of world operates, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's turned everybody's life upside down, but I think what this is bringing to everyone is resiliency. And I'm seeing that firsthand every single day with my clients. I have clients that own restaurants. They're completely changing their model to ordering online and delivery service, and that's making up much of their revenue, especially the ones that are in New York. But the ones that I have, some clients that have restaurants and airports, I mean, they have no way of getting out of this because ridership's down 75% on most U.S. carriers. So those folks are really struggling. You're seeing, though, that the professional class, folks that can work from home with a laptop, are saving up an extraordinary amount of money, and they're able to purchase homes in the suburbs, and that's why you're seeing sales in the suburbs at record highs. You're seeing a flight from major metropolitan areas because you're in apartment buildings. So many of my clients are hightailing that in New York and going to the Hamptons or Connecticut and deep in Jersey, where they're getting, sometimes doubling their living space.
We're definitely seeing it.
Does it stick, Mark, or do you think it's just until we get through this? I mean, a house purchase is not something you buy, then change your mind the next week. But I get that, but I'm just curious.
This is changing the paradigm for probably our generation. I think that it's going to be very difficult to tell folks to come back in when they worked for a full year, possibly 2, from home, and productivity didn't go down, it went up. So I don't see any employer telling folks who are doing well in this environment that they have to go back to the office when a vaccine is distributed in the next 3 or 4 years. Because let's be honest, even if we get a vaccine next year, you're talking about a 2-year implementation of getting that out to 300 million plus Americans. So, that's the reality, is that once we figure this out and folks are adapting quickly and they're continuing to make money, you're seeing that in some of the S&P 500 stocks. I mean, folks are really killing it in this environment. Right. Unfortunately, the rest of the country isn't. And so if you're working for one of those companies that's doing really well, I don't see them making you come back to the office.
Right. And we're going to talk to General Mills, the CEO. They reported earnings today, and people have been stocking up their pantries. And so we're going to get an idea of kind of what the outlook is. We want to move on to the markets. But one more question. You talk about, nobody really pressuring because productivity is we're doing well in a lot of industries and companies. We're seeing it play out in the market. Having said that, there is pressure though within the financial sector. It seems like for people to get back to offices, especially in New York City.
Well, I think what the financial sector is realizing is that they have the biggest, foothold in lending money out for the purchases of commercial property, residential property. They have the biggest amount to lose if things don't get back to somewhat of normality pretty quickly, because they're on the hook for billions of dollars of these build-outs of these major cities. So they've got to lead by example because they got the most to lose, in my opinion. And so they've got to get workers back in. They've got to start building some confidence in these major cities. Otherwise, people are just going to cut and run, and they're going to be left with the bag. That's my opinion.
That's really interesting. You sort of have to prove that you're in it so that your clients ultimately will pony up. Very interesting. So, Mark, we are talking all the time on this show, I think probably around our kitchen tables, our dining room tables, when we're socially distanced with neighbors and whatnot, about the election. We're 41, 42 days away. At this point, as an investor, how should you be thinking about this?
This is going to be one of the most consequential elections of our generation because you have, two completely different candidates. The country's split, down the middle depending on where you live. And this is going to create a tremendous amount of volatility in portfolios for the next 40 odd days. And there's good reason to that. We have 60 million people have applied for unemployment over the last 26 weeks. And right now we're kind of ignoring them. We're just kind of looking at the S&P 500, and so that's going to play out in this election as well in a big way. I think we're underestimating how many people are hurting in this country. And then you're dependent on a stimulus plan. Let me tell you something. If the Republicans shove a Supreme Court justice in the next 40 days, I don't see any reason why the Democrats would go and help them out get a second stimulus package in. We need a second stimulus package. That's why the markets are reacting the way they are today. We're down 600. It's because we don't see any end in sight, no help in sight from the federal government besides what the Fed has already done. Rates are basically zero. There's not much more they can do. They've got to look to Congress. Congress now has a huge issue. They are split out to the Supreme Court, and they're not going to work together until they figure that out. Therefore, we don't see a stimulus package probably until 2021. How many Americans can deal with that amount of uncertainty? So this election is going to be huge in that folks are trying to figure out how they're going to be able to make money with a Democrat or Republican in office. Depending on who you are, I understand why you would fall on either side of the coin. But the problem is that until this is all sorted out, it will not be sorted out on November 3rd. Right. So that's additional volatility to what we have right now. So, that's the real thing. How much more upside do we have in this market to stay in with all this uncertainty around us?
I feel like the debate needs to be, is it going to be the distressed investment story going into 2021, or will it be, the recovery cycle in terms of what the story and theme will be?
We can't recover without a vaccine.
Right.
Bottom line. Yeah. So if we don't have a vaccine, we're not.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm placing a stop on profit for euro at 116.59. Okay, stop on profit placed.
Hey, Mark, great to have you here. Look forward to having you join us again in the future. Mark C. Smith, VP of Wealth Management and Portfolio Manager at UBS Financial Services, on the phone from New York. Coming in hot, kind of like that.
I like it. And honestly, I had not put two and two together when it came to the financial services in terms of all the commercial lending and things
the real
like
estate.
that. And the real estate piece and their clients in many ways, and that the role that they play in that ecosystem. That's really smart.
Huge. It's
you,
huge.
of course, had thought of it
before
I did.
We had some reporting on Bloomberg about that.
Well, I clearly missed that.
You must have been out that day, Jason. 3%.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. There you have it. Sound of the closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange. Folks from 6 Meridian ringing that closing bell. This report brought to you by Witham, a forward-thinking advisory and accounting firm, helping clients to be in a position of strength in the new reality of business. Learn about their innovative solutions by visiting witham.com. Stocks closed at session lows amid warnings from the Fed on the need for more stimulus to lift the U.S. economy from a coronavirus-induced recession. The dollar rallied. S&P at its lowest close in about 2 months. NASDAQ 100 index tumbled more than 3%, led by giants Apple and Amazon.com. Today, Apple was down 4.2%. Amazon fell 4.1%. The Dow dropped 524 points, lower by 1.9%. S&P 500 index down 78, a drop of 2.4%. NASDAQ down 330, a decline there of 3%. NASDAQ 100 index down 353 points, lower today by 3.2%. 10-year yield 0.67%. Gold down 2%, 18.61 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude down 0.5%, 39.60 for a barrel of West Texas Intermediate crude. Well, as for the market backdrop, Katie Koch is global co-head of fundamental equity funds at Goldman Sachs.
This may be the year that we actually end up in the mid to high single digits, but the path of how we got here is obviously has been nothing but linear. So we had this 35% drawdown. We've had a 60% recovery to the top. The median stock in the S&P gets.
Well, position is closed on euro at 116.59.
8%, and after Battery Day, Tesla dropped 10.3%. Recapping a move lower for equities, sharp losses for U.S. stocks. S&P down 78, down 2.4%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Wild thing, think you move me. I got a few moves I know you'll like.
Folgt mal zu. Shaken, not stirring.
Just move on up toward your destination.
I can make things move without touching them.
Shaking all over.
Bloomberg Business Week.